This stuff, as you can see, a whole garden of it. This is an invasive species, but we have a lot of invasive species here in America, so let's use them. This is Japanese honeysuckle, and it's a multiviral. So if you were to get a cold or a flu in the winter, it can work on many different types of flu strains, not just one, as some of the flu shots will do. You would take the flowers when they come out in the spring, and they smell beautiful. You would dry them in a cool, dry place, and then you'd store them. The first year I learned about this, I did that. I collected the flowers, I dried them, and I stored them. And that winter, everybody was coming down with the flu. And all of my son's friends, my friends. And my son came home one day and he goes, "Mom, I'm pretty sure I got the flu. I got all the symptoms and I feel terrible." So that evening I gave him a cup of this honeysuckle flower tea. And then the next morning I gave him another cup and he was good to go. Now maybe he had food poisoning or something, I don't know. But I'm just telling you those are the results we had. So yeah, even though it's an invasive and can take over, it has some great qualities, so let's use them. And we can always just get it to cull back a little bit, but I definitely want some of it around. It's a wonderful plant. So let's head this way a little bit. What is it? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah. This was my favorite thing as a kid. And right now I'm planting my dandelion field. Or I do a little bit of this. These are all seeds, dandelion seeds. And dandelion is another name for tooth of the lion. As you can see, it's got these like lion-like teeth on it. Dandelion in this country, they spend a fortune spraying this out of their yards because people have been told they need to have a flat green lawn. Those lawns are the most environmentally toxic on the planet, and the amount of herbicides and pesticides and everything else people put on their lawn far surpasses anything they even put on the fields, which is abominable. By the way, we subsidize what gets put on the fields. We subsidize that type of farming, the GMO farming, all the stuff they grow to feed the animals. 70% of what we grow in this country goes to feeding animals, and that 70% is GMO, genetically modified garbage, and it's depleting our soils. And the amount of water use, we're in a water crisis in this country, and the leading cause of that is animal consumption again. So when you have this many checks for something being that bad, it's time to start paying attention. Okay, so dandelion. Way more vitamin A and C than spinach, and it's got calcium. This whole dairy thing, I grew up on a dairy farm. It's crazy. It's insane. And we were just talking about the amount of work it takes to raise animals for dairy.
What part of the dandelion has vitamin C?
All of it. It's all edible. The flowers, let me see if there's a flower here, because most of them are... well, these are closed up a little bit, but yeah, they're all of it's edible.
All of it?
Up.
Okay.
And the roots, you can dry and make it into a coffee substitute. But yes, I know people make dandelion wine. I haven't done that yet, but maybe one day. But yeah, all of it's edible. The thing with our wild greens, they tend to be more bitter. And we have literally done away with bitter in our diets. And back in the day, your grandparents would say, take your bitters. That was how you stayed healthy. Or if you got sick, take your bitters. Well, bitter it's a healing, it's like a tonic. So you get used to that a little bit. You get, at first, it might be a little bit much, but then your body starts craving it. And the great thing about wild greens is when you start thinking about eating a green salad from the store might be this huge. A green salad from your yard, ooh, that's like that big. You just need a little handful, and it's plenty. But they are, like I said, very bitter, and you might want to just add a few salad greens to whatever you're eating. You're eating a sandwich, or you're eating a salad, pop some in there. They have a nice flavor to really make it pop. So yeah, that's dandelion, and right next to it, anybody know what this is?
Clove.
Yeah, clover. Clover, when they say, where do you get your protein? I want to need protein. You gotta have protein. And there are two doctors, Elena Poldy, they wrote this whole article about protein. They go, you know what? I've never, ever run across a case of anybody who suffers from protein deficiency in America. They said, but we have many cases of people suffering from heart disease and cancers and all kinds of debilitating disease from eating animal products to get their protein. So 5 leaves of clover, this is one, 5 leaves of clover is the same amount of protein as a slice of American cheese. And if we're still eating American cheese, I would recommend you stop immediately. It's toxic. Anyway, so 5 little leaves of clover. And it's got B12. They say, well, you got to eat animals for B12. Well, with what our animals are eating now and the soil's being so depleted, they're not getting their B12 because they were getting it from eating the plants.
Does that apply to all clovers or particular clovers?
All clovers, as far as I know, both the red and the white, you know. But, well, I should say those two. There's several different types.
So it's purple.
Out there, they're different, but the two that I'm 100% sure of is white clover and red clover. And they both have the same shape. One has a little red, reddish or pinkish. Let me see, there's a little clover head here. We'll look down there, we got a whole crop of it down there. But yes, they have B12. They're known in Germany to be an anti-cancer. And the majority of these plants, you know, somewhere along the line in their description will say anti-cancer, anti-cancer. Well, it's because they're loaded with all the nutrition and things we need, and they help start cleansing our body. When our body starts taking this stuff in, they get to work, they go, oh good, we got some backup now. I get to work cleaning out the junk and the garbage. So a lot of people, I will add this, when they start to go on a raw food diet from a meat diet, and they go cold turkey, they will get very sick. Because when they start eating that way, their body gets busy right away and starts dumping toxins. And sometimes it will happen right away. Sometimes it will take a week. Sometimes it might take several weeks. But at some point, your body's going to say, it's going to say goodbye. So, you know, I saw a lot of that at Hippocrates Health Institute. People just sick. And they warned them. So, you know, if you're a heavy meat eater, cut it slowly. But still, do it quickly, because we don't have a lot of time on this planet with our meat-eating habits. We used to go from eating next to no meat, very little, maybe 3 times a week, a little bit of meat 3 times a week. But now we've gone to eating 3 types of meat at one meal. Like breakfast is bacon, sausage, and scrapple with eggs. This is insane. And they've proven that all this stuff causes cancer and heart disease. So, you know, here we are. We've got the #1 killer on the planet. And does our news say anything about it? Do you hear it on the news every night? No. Look at their commercials. Their commercials are all about eating animals and animals products. And the other commercials are all about taking drugs so that you can mask the symptoms of eating these animals and animals products. It's a vicious cycle. The drug industry does not want you to get well. They won't make any money. So, let's keep going.
But if you go to a Jamaican store or you are buying Jamaican...
Called Violet. So yes, this is literally spinach on steroids. It's loaded with vitamin A and vitamin C, way more than you will get in spinach. And like I said, just a handful is all you need for your nutrition. So, I mean, this is growing everywhere. There's a little patch here. I got a big patch out there. So these are literally my little fields. I don't have to sow them. I don't have to do anything. I just pick and eat, pick and eat, pick and eat all day long. In this yard. This year it is literally taking over in this yard. And I know when a plant does this, it's trying to tell me something. This is Indian strawberry, and it's got the yellow leaf, and it will get a little insipid red berry on it, and I can't really see any right now. It'll get a little insipid, means it doesn't really have any flavor. It's really small and got a lot of seeds in it. But this is really good externally or internally for eczema, externally, but internally you can make a tea out of this, and gosh, I can't think, it's like good for lung ailments and other things. But it's telling me I really, really need to learn this one because it's screaming, literally screaming at me because there's a message here. And as you get to know the plants more, call me strange, but you'll experience some things like you'll literally hear them trying to give you a message. Again, this plant is taking over. It's a multi-floral needles. Okay.
Fresh.
Yeah. I'll tell you the story about this. When I was a kid, about 3rd grade, in school, you know, being a good listener and learning, they talked about these limeys, these sailors that would come over on the ships from Europe to America, and about how they would get scurvy. Yeah. Lack of vitamin C, right? So they get scurvy. So they would pack with them on these long voyages these citrus, like the oranges and the limes and the lemons and everything, to make sure they didn't get scurvy. Well, I'm a little kid growing up in Minnesota, and I'm like, well, okay then. Yeah, well, maybe that was good for them. But they don't grow lemons and limes in Minnesota, and it's a long, cold winter. So how did these people, you know, in the northern climates, New England area, how did they not get scurvy in the winter? How did the Native Americans who lived in that climate their whole life, how did they not have scurvy? And the teacher didn't know the answer. And so years went by, years. I went to my first tracker class. The lady who did the plant walk, she pulls down the pine and she goes, well, starts chewing on it. A cup of pine needle tea has the same amount of vitamin C as a cup of fresh squeezed orange juice. And I go, wow. Oh, actually, not the same amount, 5 times the vitamin C of a cup of fresh squeezed orange juice. I go, oh my gosh. So there it was. All of a sudden, I had been taken back to that moment when I was a child and asked that question. I go, thank you for the answer. It's been a while, but so yeah, it's kind of astringent, but this is available all winter long. It's an evergreen, and there you go. With the raw food diet and the wild greens as part of it, the amount of nutrition we need in a day, I can literally say, is practically a hand take. In one of the classes on Tuesday, I go, well, how many calories does this way of eating involve? How many calories should you have? And I said, it's not about calories, it's about nutrition. The majority of us in this country are most likely malnourished to some extent because we're destroying our soils and what's being grown on them. Here's a statistic. Over 70% of what we grow in America goes to feeding animals. And it's the most labor-intensive practice of anything. I think to produce 1 calorie of meat, cow meat, it takes producing 32 calories of food for just 1 calorie of cow meat. It's ridiculous. It's insane. And the one thing I learned at tracker school was the number 1 law of nature. And the number 1 law of nature is... Anybody? Number 1 law of nature. Conservation of energy. So what would be the number 1 diet? Eating as little food as you need, you know, a handful of food and you're good